What could possibly make one of the greatest NBA legends break down in tears right in the middle of the most popular late-night show? And why did Jimmy Fallon have to step in with words that turned the entire studio silent? The studio lights blaze, the stage is glowing. The crowd that was roaring just moments ago suddenly falls into an uneasy silence. The camera zooms in on a man whose face has always been the definition of confidence and joy. A man who usually carries the brightest smile and an aura of unshakable energy. But tonight, something shatters the image. Because sitting on that iconic talk show chair is Stephen Curry, hands covering his face, shoulders trembling lightly, breath stifled as though he's been holding something back for years. And right beside him, Jimmy Fallon leans in, resting a hand on Curry's shoulder, whispering softly into the microphone that catches every vibration of his voice, "It's okay. It's okay." And the moment freezes the entire room, an atmosphere so thick that you could almost feel the weight pressing down. Because this isn't the Stephen Curry that fans are used to. This isn't the global superstar hitting impossible three-pointers and celebrating with endless joy. This is the human side of Curry exploding into view without warning. Raw, unfiltered, unstoppable. And the audience, who were laughing hysterically during the previous segment, suddenly sits motionless, as if every single person is holding their breath. Then the microphone captures a fragile murmur, Curry's voice breaking. "I never thought it would go this far. I never thought I'd have to carry all of this." And the words cut deep into anyone listening. Because how often do we see a man of his stature, a two-time MVP, a four-time NBA champion, the face of an entire franchise, admit that the pressure is crushing, that behind the glamour there is a storm? And Jimmy Fallon, with an expression the world rarely sees on his usually playful and humorous face, stares at Curry with genuine concern, nodding slowly as though telling the audience silently, "This is real. This is not for laughs." And Curry tries to speak again, his voice cracking. "People think I'm never scared, that I never get tired. But the truth is, God, I'm human too. I fall down too." And those words pierce through the entire studio because they strip away the illusion that superstars are invincible, reminding everyone that even the brightest figures are still flesh and blood, still vulnerable, still capable of breaking down. And Fallon takes a deep breath, pats him again, and says quietly but firmly, "Steph, you're not alone, man. You're not alone." And the gravity of that simple sentence lingers, resonating in a way no motivational speech could. While some members of the live audience start to sniffle, the sound of quiet sobs slipping through the silence, the cameras keep rolling, not cutting away, capturing Curry's eyes turning red, his lips quivering as he covers his face again, and in between shaky breaths, he pushes out another sentence. "I just want people to understand that this journey isn't always easy. I want them to know how hard it is to keep standing strong, even when you feel like everything's collapsing." And that confession hits harder than any highlight reel, because every person in that room, whether they knew basketball or not, could feel themselves in those words. Every moment of struggle, every time they had to put on a brave face while breaking inside, it was all mirrored in the tears of Stephen Curry. And Jimmy leans forward, eyes steady, voice steady, telling him, "Steph, sometimes you've got to let people see this side too, not to make them pity you, but so they understand. This is real. This is you." And Curry nods faintly, lets out a half laugh through his tears. "I didn't think I'd break down like this on your show, man." And Fallon chuckles softly, shaking his head. "I didn't think so either." But maybe this is the moment that needed to come out. And the crowd almost instinctively begins to clap, not the explosive claps of a performance, but a slow, supportive applause, a warm wave of empathy that fills the air, as if every single hand in the room was saying, "We've got you." And the energy in the studio transforms completely, no longer a late-night entertainment segment, but a human experience shared by everyone present. And that's the paradox of this breakdown. It doesn't reduce Curry's stature one bit, it elevates him. Because the courage to be vulnerable in front of millions is rarer than any championship ring, rarer than any MVP trophy. And right when the moment seems to be calming, Curry looks up, his eyes still wet, scanning the audience as if trying to speak directly into each soul in the room, his voice trembling but firm. "I'm about to tell you something I've never said on camera before." The audience doesn't even move, the cameras keep rolling, and Jimmy Fallon leans back slightly, giving Curry the space to continue, his hand still resting on Curry's shoulder like a quiet anchor. And Curry takes a breath so heavy it echoes through the microphone, the studio lights catching the shine of tears on his face as he finally looks up and begins to speak, his voice carrying that rawness that no script could ever create. "For years I've been smiling, showing up, giving everything I have on the court and off the court, trying to be the example everybody expects, but nobody sees the nights when I couldn't sleep. Nobody hears the doubts that run in my head when I miss a shot, or when my body aches so bad I don't even know how I'll get up tomorrow." And the studio falls deeper into silence, Fallon's face frozen in empathy, the crowd unable to do anything except listen, because this isn't a rehearsed promo, it's a confession unfolding live. And Curry goes on, his words trembling but steady enough to slice through the room. "I've been told my whole career that I'm too small, that I don't belong. And even when I proved people wrong, when I held up those trophies, there was still a voice inside me asking if it was enough, if I was enough." And that line alone seems to ripple through the audience like a wave, because who hasn't wrestled with that same invisible question, even at the height of their success? And Fallon finally responds softly, leaning in, "Steph, that's the part nobody sees, man. People think you just walk out there and it's all magic. But the truth is, you carry all of that weight, and it takes a toll." And Curry nods quickly, almost desperately. "Exactly, it's heavy, Jimmy. It's so heavy, and sometimes I feel like I can't show it because the moment I show it, the world will say I'm weak. But the truth is, hiding it is killing me." And the audience exhales collectively, a sound you'd never expect in a late-night talk show. But tonight, it's not about entertainment. It's about truth, about vulnerability, about peeling back the layers of the image the world worships. And Jimmy, shaking his head slowly, tells him, "Bro, if anything, this right here makes you stronger than ever. You're showing people that even when you're at the top, you're still human, and that's what connects us all." And Curry lets out a broken laugh, shaking his head. "Man, I wish people knew how many times I've cried like this, alone, in the locker room, in hotel rooms, even in my car before games, just trying to remind myself why I'm doing this, why I keep pushing." And that revelation lands like a bombshell, not because it's scandalous, but because it's so painfully human. And Fallon says gently, "You don't have to explain why, Steph. We see it every time you step on that court. You play like someone who loves the game, like someone who loves life, and that's why people love you back." But Curry shakes his head, eyes still red. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes love gets drowned out by pressure, by criticism, by the expectations that never stop growing, and it makes you wonder if the cost is too high. And the honesty in that statement makes the audience visibly shift in their seats, some clasping their hands together, others shaking their heads as if silently telling him, "No, don't think that way." And Fallon reacts almost like a friend more than a host. "Steph, listen, the cost will always feel high when you carry it alone. But you've got people with you, man. You've got family, you've got teammates, you've got millions who believe in you. And if you let them in, it won't break you." And Curry wipes his face with the back of his hand, nodding slowly. "I know, but sometimes I feel like letting people in is harder than any game I've ever played. Because once they're in, they see everything, even the parts I don't want to show." And that statement hangs heavy in the air because it's the universal fear of exposure, of being truly seen. And Fallon takes a second, then responds carefully,
Steph, what you just did here, right now, in front of everyone watching, that's letting people in. And look around. Nobody's judging. Nobody's turning away. Everyone's with you. And Curry looks out at the audience again, scanning their faces as though searching for proof. And what he sees is not rejection, but people leaning forward, eyes soft, some with tears, some with gentle smiles. And he laughs again softly, broken but genuine. I never thought I'd find this kind of moment here, of all places. And Fallon replies, sometimes the places we least expect are the ones that give us the space to breathe. And Curry nods, closing his eyes for a second, almost as if he's absorbing the relief, then opens them again and says, there's something I've been carrying for so long, and I think maybe it's time people hear it, even if it scares me.
The air in the studio feels like it's vibrating. No one dares to shift too loudly in their chair. The cameras capture every twitch of Curry's face as he steadies himself, his hands still trembling slightly as he rests them on his lap, and Jimmy Fallon keeps his eyes locked on him, patient, careful, like a friend who knows the next words are going to matter more than anything else said all night. And then Curry exhales, voice low but resonant. I've been carrying this weight for years, and I always thought if I just kept pushing through, if I just kept smiling, maybe it would go away. But it never did, because behind every win, behind every trophy, there's this voice that never shuts up, telling me I'm not enough. And the audience reacts with a soft murmur. The kind that isn't disrespectful, but almost involuntary, like they can't believe they're hearing this level of honesty from one of the most celebrated athletes alive. And Fallon leans in, his tone almost whisper-like, but still caught by the mic. Steph, man, that voice, it lies. It always lies. It's not the truth. But Curry shakes his head quickly, gripping his hands together. I want to believe that, Jimmy, but do you know how hard it is when millions of people are watching, analyzing, criticizing, and no matter what you do, it never feels like it's enough for everyone? And Fallon nods, eyes glistening. Yeah, man, I get it. Maybe not on your level, but I get the pressure, the expectation, and the worst part is when you start believing the criticism more than the support. And Curry lets out a deep sigh, his voice breaking again. Exactly. People don't understand that when I walk off the court, I don't just turn it off. I replay every miss, every mistake, every moment where I feel like I let someone down. And it follows me home. It follows me into bed. It follows me into my dreams. And I wake up with it. And sometimes I think maybe the world doesn't see how much that eats away at me. And at this point, several audience members are openly wiping tears from their faces. The camera pans across rows of fans who look stunned, and Fallon carefully places his hand back on Curry's shoulder, steady but firm. Steph, man, the world's seeing it now. They're hearing it now. And I promise you, nobody here thinks less of you. In fact, they respect you even more for saying it. But Curry shakes his head with a weary smile. Respect is nice, Jimmy, but it doesn't erase the pressure. It doesn't erase the nights I feel like I'm drowning. And that line hits the audience hard, the word drowning lingering in the air like smoke. And Fallon pauses, almost looking for the right words, then says, Steph, sometimes the only way to stop drowning is to stop fighting the water and just let people pull you back to shore. And Curry stares at him for a moment, clearly absorbing the metaphor, his breathing uneven, before replying softly, That's the problem, man. I've never been good at letting anyone pull me back. I've always thought I had to do it myself because that's what leaders do, right? Leaders stay strong. And Fallon shakes his head quickly, cutting him off gently but firmly. Nah, leaders don't always stay strong. Leaders show people it's okay to be weak too, because that's real strength. And the audience applauds quietly at that, a ripple of agreement flowing through the studio. And Curry, visibly emotional, closes his eyes for a long second before whispering, Sometimes I think the world doesn't want to see me weak. Sometimes I think if they see me like this, they'll stop believing in me. And Fallon immediately responds, Look around, Steph. Nobody stopped believing. Nobody's leaving. If anything, they're closer than ever right now. And Curry opens his eyes, scanning the audience again, seeing the tears, the nods, the gentle encouragement, and he laughs softly, a broken laugh. Man, this is so crazy. I've been holding this in for so long, and now here I am on national TV just spilling it all. And Fallon shakes his head with a smile. Nah, not crazy, man. Powerful. And Curry's voice shakes as he adds, "The thing is, Jimmy, there's something even deeper than pressure, deeper than the criticism, something I've never said to anyone in public, and I don't know if people are ready to hear it."
The studio feels like it is transformed from a stage of entertainment into a confessional space, the kind you'd never expect under the glare of cameras and the laughter of a late-night crowd. But now the laughter is gone, replaced by an emotional stillness that everyone feels in their chest. And Curry sits forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together as if he's physically holding the weight of his words, his eyes red but steady, and when he speaks, his voice trembles yet pushes forward with determination. "I've been holding this for so long, Jimmy, because I thought if I ever let it out, people would think less of me. But the truth is, there are days when I wake up and I don't even want to play. Not because I don't love the game, but because I don't know if I can keep giving the world what it expects from me." And the audience gasps lightly, not out of judgment, but out of shock at hearing a superstar admit something that raw. Fallon shakes his head slowly, leaning closer, his hand still on Curry's back like a lifeline. "Steph, man, you don't owe the world perfection. You've already given so much, more than anyone could ever ask." But Curry shakes his head with intensity. "That's the thing, Jimmy. It never feels like enough. Every shot I make, there's someone saying it's not good enough. Every championship I win, there's someone saying it's not as impressive. Every move I make off the court, there's someone criticizing it. And when you pile that up for years, it starts eating you alive." His words spilling faster now, his chest rising and falling with the weight of finally saying it out loud. And Fallon nods, his voice softer now. "Steph, I know the noise is loud, but look at the bigger picture. You've inspired millions. You've changed the game. You've made people believe in possibilities they never thought were real." And Curry lets out a shaky laugh. "And yet I still go home at night and ask myself if I'm a failure. How crazy is that?" And the room stirs again because who would ever think Stephen Curry, the man who redefined basketball, would wrestle with the word failure? But the way he says it is not dramatic, it's painfully honest, the kind of honesty that makes people shift in their seats because they feel their own struggles reflected in it. And Fallon, clearly emotional, responds, "It's not crazy, man. It's human. We all have that voice inside, even if the world sees us as successful. But hearing you say it here, that takes courage." And Curry presses his palms together, his voice breaking. "But Jimmy, what if that voice never stops? What if no matter what I achieve, I'll never feel like it's enough?" And that question lingers, the silence so heavy that you can almost hear the cameras whirring. And Fallon leans closer, his eyes locked on Curry. "Then maybe the answer isn't about achieving more. Maybe it's about accepting yourself right where you are." And Curry stares at him, swallowing hard, his lips trembling as if he wants to believe those words but can't. "I've tried, man. I've tried so many times to accept it, but the truth is, every time I walk onto that court, every time I pick up a ball, it feels like I'm carrying not just my career, but my family, my team, my fans, my city. And if I slip, if I stumble, I feel like I let everyone down." And Fallon shakes his head firmly. "Steph, listen to me. You don't carry all of that alone. You're not Atlas holding up the world, and you don't have to be." But Curry's voice rises with emotion. "Then why does it feel like it, Jimmy? Why does it feel like I'm the one who has to keep it all together?" And Fallon, almost choking on his own words, responds, "Because you care too much, and that's what makes you who you are. But caring doesn't mean you have to break yourself to prove it." And Curry leans back in his chair, running a hand over his face, his body visibly trembling as though the words are draining years of bottled-up emotion. The audience sitting on the edge of their seats, some with hands covering their mouths, some nodding in solidarity. And then Curry lets out a whisper that somehow pierces the silence. "There's something I've never told anyone, not my teammates, not even my family, because I was scared they'd look at me differently. But I can't keep hiding it anymore." The weight of Curry's last words hangs in the studio like a thick fog, the audience frozen in their seats as though even the slightest movement might break the fragile truth that's about to surface. Jimmy Fallon doesn't rush him. He doesn't fill the silence with jokes like he usually does. Instead, he sits there, leaning slightly toward Curry, his eyes wide but compassionate, giving him the space to let it out. And Curry swallows hard, his Adam's apple rising and falling as he grips his hands together tightly, almost like he's bracing for impact. Then his voice cracks through the tension, raw and unpolished. I've never said this before because I thought it would make me look weak. I thought it would make people question me, question everything I've built. But the truth is, there were times I almost walked away from the game, times when the pressure was so heavy I thought maybe stepping away would be easier than fighting through it. And the crowd audibly gasps. You can hear the ripple of shock sweep across the studio, because nobody, not a single person in that room or watching on TV, expected Stephen Curry to admit he's thought about leaving the sport that defined him. And Fallon's eyes widen as he shakes his head slowly. Steph, wow, man, that's heavy. But Curry doesn't stop. He pushes forward, his voice stronger now, as though once the dam has cracked, the flood can't be stopped. I love basketball, Jimmy, I really do. It's in my blood. It's everything I've known since I was a kid. But there were days when I felt like the love wasn't enough to carry the weight anymore, when the criticism got louder than the joy, when the injuries piled up, when my body screamed at me and I still had to smile for the cameras, still had to pretend like I was fine. And I asked myself, is it worth it? Is any of this worth it? And the audience leans forward, hanging on every syllable, Fallon's voice breaking as he says softly, Steph, man, I don't even know what to say except, I get it. I get how that pressure can crush someone. And Curry nods, his eyes glistening again. You know what hurts the most? It's not the injuries, it's not the losses, it's not even the critics. It's the fear that if I ever stop being Stephen Curry the superstar, people will stop caring about who I really am. That without the game, I'm nobody. And the audience gasps again, some covering their mouths in disbelief, because to hear someone at the top of the sports world admit to feeling like a nobody is almost unthinkable. But Curry's voice trembles with conviction. That's why I kept pushing, why I kept hiding the pain, because I thought if I ever let people see the cracks, they'd throw me away like I didn't matter anymore. And Fallon quickly interjects, shaking his head firmly. Steph, listen, man, you're wrong about that. You're dead wrong. Because what you're doing right now, being real, showing the cracks, it makes people care even more, not less. But Curry leans forward, gripping the edge of his seat as if to steady himself. Then why does it never feel that way, Jimmy? Why does it feel like no matter what I do, it's never enough? And Fallon, with his voice almost shaking, replies, because you've been carrying a standard no human being can carry forever. And maybe tonight is the first time you can finally let some of it go. And Curry laughs bitterly through his tears. Let it go. Man, I wish it was that easy. His head dropping into his hands, shoulders shaking, as the audience watches in rapt silence. Then he lifts his head, his face streaked with tears, and says, do you know how close I was to calling it quits after my last injury? Do you know how many times I sat in a dark room with my ankle wrapped up, wondering if it was even worth getting up again? Fallon's face tightens, his own eyes damp, and he shakes his head slowly. Steph, man, the world has no idea. And Curry nods sharply. Exactly, they don't, because I never let them see it. I never let them see me when I was broken, when I was scared, when I felt like I had nothing left to give. But tonight I can't hide it anymore, because carrying it alone is destroying me. And the studio audience, unable to hold back, bursts into gentle applause, not the kind of applause that interrupts, but the kind that feels like a collective hug, like an outpouring of support. And Fallon places both hands on Curry's shoulders now, looking him dead in the eye. Steph, you're not alone anymore. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. But Curry shakes his head, whispering almost to himself,
But what if letting it out makes everything worse? What if the world looks at me differently tomorrow? And Fallon steadily responds, then let them, because the people who truly care will only love you more for it. And Curry stares at him, the words hanging heavy in his heart, then turns slowly to face the audience again, his breathing ragged, his lips trembling, as he says, there's one truth I've been running from, the darkest part of it all. And I don't even know if I have the strength to say it out loud.
The silence in the studio is almost unbearable, the audience holding their breath as Curry's words dangle in the air, the phrase, the darkest part, echoing in everyone's mind like a drumbeat. Jimmy Fallon doesn't interrupt, he doesn't move, he just waits, his hands steady on Curry's shoulders as if to anchor him in this storm. And Curry closes his eyes for a moment, his chest heaving, his lips pressed tight like he's fighting himself. Then finally he exhales, and his voice comes out soft but trembling. The truth is, Jimmy, there were nights when I didn't just think about quitting basketball. I thought about quitting everything. And the room reacts instantly, a collective gasp rippling through the audience, the kind of sound that happens when people hear something they never thought possible. Fallon's eyes widen, his face instantly shifting from host to human, his voice catching. Steph, oh man, are you saying what I think you're saying? But Curry nods, his voice cracking as he pushes forward. Yeah, there were times when it got so dark, when the weight felt so unbearable, I wondered if the world would be better off without me. And I hate admitting that. I hate saying those words, but it's the truth, Jimmy. It's the truth I've been running from. And the audience is stunned into silence, some covering their mouths, some visibly crying, because this is no longer just about basketball. This is about life, about survival. And Fallon's voice breaks as he leans even closer. Steph? Man, you have no idea how many people you've saved just by existing. How many people look at you and see hope. You can't ever believe the world would be better without you because it wouldn't. Not for a second. And Curry wipes his face roughly with his hands, shaking his head. I know that now, but back then it didn't feel that way. Back then it felt like the walls were closing in, like no matter how many shots I made, no matter how many games I won, it would never silence that voice in my head telling me I was worthless. And his confession slices through the room, the weight of it so real that even the cameras seem to tremble as they zoom in on his tear-streaked face. Fallon responds carefully, his voice steady but emotional. Steph, what you just said? Man, it's heavy. It's raw. But it's also powerful, because you're proving to everyone watching that even the strongest, even the most successful, fight these battles. And by saying it out loud, you're giving others permission to admit it too. And Curry nods slowly, his eyes glistening. That's why I said it, Jimmy. That's why I'm letting it out tonight, because I don't want to keep pretending. I don't want to keep smiling when inside I'm breaking. I want people to understand that it's okay to struggle. It's okay to hurt. And it's okay to not be okay. And the audience, unable to stay silent, erupts into a wave of soft clapping and standing nods. Not a standing ovation for entertainment, but a raw, human acknowledgement. And Fallon wipes his own eye quickly, his voice hushed. Steph, you don't know how many lives you might have just touched with those words, man. You might have just saved someone tonight. And Curry laughs bitterly, shaking his head. I hope so, because if all the pain I've carried can at least help one person feel less alone, then maybe it's worth it. Maybe it means something. And Fallon grips his shoulder tighter. It means everything, Steph, everything. And Curry looks down, shaking his head, his body trembling as he whispers, the hardest part wasn't even the thoughts, Jimmy. It was hiding them from my wife, from my kids, from my teammates, because I didn't want them to see me broken. I didn't want them to lose faith in me. And Fallon answers softly, but Steph, hiding only made it heavier. And look at you now, man. You're not broken. You're brave. And Curry's lips tremble as he lets out a shaky laugh. Brave. I don't know about that, Jimmy, but tonight feels like the first time I can finally breathe. And the audience erupts into supportive applause again, the sound echoing like waves of relief. But then Curry's face turns serious, his eyes locking back on Fallon. But Jimmy, there's one more thing I need to say, something I've never admitted even to myself until recently, and it might be the hardest truth of all.
The studio has reached a level of silence that feels almost sacred. Every person in the audience leaning forward as if their very souls are tethered to Curry's next words. Fallon doesn't even blink, his eyes fixed on the man beside him, his hands resting steady on Curry's shoulders, as if to remind him that he isn't alone in this moment. And Curry takes a deep, uneven breath, his chest rising and falling as he tries to steady himself. Then finally he speaks,
his voice cracked but firm enough to carry across the room. "The hardest truth, Jimmy, is that for a long time I didn't know who I was without the game, without the court, without the ball in my hands. And that scared me more than anything, because I realized I had tied my entire identity to being Stephen Curry, the basketball player. And I didn't know if there was anything left when that was gone." And the audience reacts instantly, a soft murmur of heartbreak rippling through the room. Fallon's face crumples slightly, his own voice shaking as he responds. "Steph, man, that's deep. That's real. And it's something I think a lot of people, even outside of sports, can relate to, when who you are gets tangled up in what you do." And Curry nods quickly, his eyes shining. "Exactly, Jimmy. And it's dangerous, because the moment you stumble, the moment you get injured, the moment the critics start shouting louder than the cheers, you start to believe maybe you don't exist anymore. Maybe without the game, you're just nothing." And that raw admission pierces through the audience. You can see people wiping tears, shaking their heads as if silently disagreeing with his words. Fallon leans closer, his voice urgent now. "Steph, you are so much more than the game, man. You're a father, you're a husband, you're a son, you're a brother, you're a role model, you're someone who inspires millions. Don't ever reduce yourself to just one thing." But Curry shakes his head, gripping his hands together tightly. "I hear you, Jimmy, I do. But for years, all I've ever known is this. Every day of my life has been basketball. Every conversation, every headline, every expectation. And sometimes I look in the mirror and I don't see Steven the person. I only see Steven the performer, the guy who has to deliver. And it's exhausting, man. It's so exhausting." His voice cracking at the edges, the sound of it filling the studio with an almost unbearable vulnerability. Fallon nods, his tone hushed but intense. "Steph, that's not just your battle. That's everybody's battle who's ever been defined by their work. But the difference is you're brave enough to say it out loud, and that changes everything." And Curry lets out a bitter laugh through his tears. "Brave? Man, I don't feel brave. I feel empty. I feel like I've spent so much of my life being what the world wanted me to be that I forgot to figure out who I actually am." And that confession is like a thunderclap, reverberating through the hearts of everyone in the room. Fallon shakes his head, his voice breaking. "Steph, maybe tonight is the start of that journey. Maybe tonight you finally get to find out who you are beyond the game." And Curry looks down, his hands trembling, whispering, "I don't even know where to start, Jimmy. I don't know how to untangle myself from the jersey, from the name, from the spotlight. I don't know who I am when I'm not performing." And Fallon, his own eyes glassy, says softly, "You start by doing exactly this, by being honest, by letting people see you, the real you, not the perfect version, not the highlight reel, but the human being who struggles, who doubts, who hurts, and who's still standing anyway." And Curry wipes his face with his hand, his body visibly shaking as he nods slowly. "Maybe you're right. Maybe this is the first step. But it's terrifying, man. It's terrifying to think that if I'm not Stephen Curry, the player, then maybe people won't care anymore." And Fallon responds quickly, shaking his head. "No, Steph, people will care even more, because they'll finally see you as one of them, not just above them. And that's powerful." And the audience claps gently, nodding in agreement, their faces full of empathy. And Curry laughs softly through his tears. "I want to believe that, Jimmy, I really do. But part of me still fears that the moment I stop playing, the moment I stop performing, the world will move on and forget me." And Fallon, his voice rising slightly with passion, "Steph, legends don't get forgotten, man. And you're not just a legend because of basketball. You're a legend because of what you stand for, what you've given to people's hearts." And Curry bites his lip, his eyes scanning the audience again, his voice trembling. "If that's true, then maybe it's time I stop running from the question I've been avoiding my whole life." Fallon tilts his head, his eyebrows raising, his voice soft but firm. "What question, Steph?" And Curry closes his eyes, his voice barely above a whisper, but strong enough to make the entire studio lean in at once.
The question of who I really am when the game is gone.
The words hang in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and impossible to ignore. And the audience feels the weight of Curry's whisper like a punch to the chest. Fallon leans in closer, his voice trembling as he repeats softly, "Who you are when the game is gone. Steph, that's the question, isn't it?" And Curry nods, his face contorted with a mixture of pain and fear. "Yeah, Jimmy, that's the one I've been too scared to ask myself, because the truth is, I don't know if there's anything left. I don't know if I matter anymore, if I'll still be loved, if I'll even know how to live without it." And Fallon's eyes glisten, his voice heavy but tender. "Steph, you matter, man. You matter because of who you are, not what you do, not what you've achieved. And the fact that you're saying this out loud proves that your worth was never tied to a scoreboard, never tied to a championship ring." But Curry shakes his head violently, his voice breaking. "That's easy to say, Jimmy, but every headline, every comment, every tweet, it all ties me back to one thing: basketball. The game that made me, the game that defines me, the game that the whole world expects me to carry until the day I can't walk anymore. And when that ends, when it's all gone, what's left for me? Who do I become when the ball isn't in my hands?" And the audience is stunned, no one daring to interrupt the storm unraveling on stage. Fallon leans forward, gripping his hand now, his tone urgent. "Steph, listen to me. The game doesn't make you. You made the game. You changed it. You redefined what basketball even means. You showed kids everywhere that they could believe in themselves no matter how small, no matter how overlooked. You left fingerprints on the culture that can't be erased." But Curry drops his head, shaking it slowly. "I hear you, Jimmy, but when the lights are off, when the fans go home, when it's just me lying in bed at night, those thoughts don't sound so convincing. Because the truth is, I'm afraid. I'm afraid I won't know how to live a normal life. I'm afraid I won't know how to connect with people without a jersey on my back. I'm afraid that maybe the love was never for me. It was always for the player, not the person." And those words sink deep into the room. Fallon's face tightening with emotion, his voice breaking as he responds, "Steph, man, that's the fear all of us carry deep down, that if we stop performing, stop proving ourselves, the love disappears. But real love doesn't disappear. Real love stays when the applause fades." And Curry's lips tremble as he bites down hard, his tears streaming again. "I want to believe that. I want to trust that the people closest to me will still see me, still love me. But even then, Jimmy, even then, I don't know who I'll be looking at in the mirror, because I've spent my whole life introducing myself through my stats, my rings, my titles. And without those, I'm scared I'll just be nobody." And Fallon's voice rises with a rare intensity, almost pleading. "Steph, no, man. You'll never be nobody. You'll be the guy who showed millions of people that greatness isn't just about height or strength. It's about heart, about perseverance, about faith. You'll be the man your kids look up to, not because you can shoot from half court, but because you told the truth tonight." And the audience bursts into applause, a raw, emotional wave that breaks the tension for a moment. But Curry doesn't even look up, his shoulder still trembling as he whispers, "But Jimmy, what if I don't even know how to love myself without the game?" And that sentence crashes through the air like a hammer. Fallon squeezes his hand tighter, his own voice faltering. "Steph, that's the realest thing you've said all night, and it's the battle so many people face. But you admitting it here, right now, proves you're already stronger than the voice telling you otherwise." And Curry lets out a shaky laugh that quickly dissolves into more tears. "I don't feel strong, Jimmy. I feel like I'm crumbling in front of everyone. I feel like I'm giving away the only shield I've ever had, and it scares me that when it's gone, I'll be exposed and empty." Fallon shakes his head, his voice calm but powerful. "Steph, vulnerability isn't weakness, man. It's courage. It's the beginning of freedom. And I promise you this, the world isn't going to forget you when the game ends. The world is going to remember you even more for moments like this." And Curry's chest heaves as he takes in those words, his eyes darting around the studio, scanning the crowd, seeing tears, nods, even standing figures clapping slowly in solidarity. And his lips part as he whispers, "Maybe this is what I've been running from. Maybe this is the truth I've been too afraid to face, that finding myself without the game might be the hardest challenge of my life." Fallon nods firmly, his hand still gripping Curry's, his voice soft but sharp. "And maybe, Steph, It's the most important game you'll ever play." And Curry laughs bitterly, wiping his face with his sleeve, his voice cracking as he answers, "Then I guess the question is, do I even have the strength to play it?" The question echoes in the air like a challenge that no one in the studio dares to answer. Fallon sits back for a moment, his hand still resting on Curry's shoulder, his eyes locked on him with a mix of compassion and intensity. And the audience feels that shared tension, every breath in the room caught between silence and expectation. Then Fallon finally speaks, his voice calm but powerful. "Steph, you've had the strength to hit shots that seemed impossible. You've had the strength to carry entire seasons on your back. You've had the strength to rise when everyone counted you out. And I don't believe for a second that you don't have the strength to face this too." And Curry lets out a long breath, his voice fragile but steadying. "It's different, Jimmy, because on the court, I always knew the rules. I knew the lines. I knew the rhythm of the game. But this is life without the playbook. This is me stepping into something I don't understand, and that terrifies me." Fallon leans forward, his tone shifting into something almost brotherly. "Steph, maybe that's the point. Maybe life isn't supposed to be scripted. Maybe the freedom you're scared of is the very thing you need. Maybe you've been playing under so many expectations that you forgot what it feels like to just be." And Curry tilts his head back, closing his eyes as tears trace his cheeks. "To just be. Man, I don't even know what that looks like. I've been performing since I was a kid, since people doubted me, since I had to prove myself every single day. And maybe I don't know how to exist outside of proving people wrong." And Fallon's response comes quick, his voice thick with conviction. "Steph, listen, you don't have to prove anything anymore. Not to the critics, not to the world, not even to yourself. You've already done it. You've already carved your name into history. But now you get to choose. You get to live. You get to discover who you are without needing validation. And that, my brother, is freedom." And Curry opens his eyes, his lips quivering into a half smile even through the tears. "Freedom. I don't even know if I know how to hold it, Jimmy. I don't know if I'll drop it the moment I touch it." Fallon shakes his head gently. "Nah, man, you won't drop it. You'll grow into it, the same way you grew into your game, the same way you learned to shoot from distances people thought were impossible. You'll learn to live with yourself beyond basketball. And maybe that journey will inspire even more people than your championships ever did." And the audience bursts into applause again, some rising to their feet, clapping with tears streaming down their faces, because it feels less like a talk show now and more like a revival, a collective moment of truth being spoken into existence. Curry laughs softly through his tears. "You really think so? You really think me admitting my fears and showing this side of myself could actually inspire someone?" And Fallon leans back with a wide smile, his voice rising. "Steph, look around, man. Look at the audience. Look at these faces. You've already done it. You're doing it right now." And Curry scans the crowd, his eyes landing on people wiping tears, nodding, even mouthing the words, "Thank you." And his chest rises as a different kind of breath escapes him, one that isn't just grief, but something like relief, his voice breaking but with a new clarity. "Maybe this is what I needed. Maybe I needed to stop pretending I had it all together. Maybe I needed to let people see the cracks." And Fallon nods furiously, his own voice tight with emotion. "Yes, Steph, because it's through the cracks that the light gets in. It's through the cracks that people see your humanity." And Curry laughs again, wiping his eyes. "I guess I've been so afraid of losing my identity that I didn't realize maybe the real identity was underneath the whole time, waiting for me to let it out." Fallon grins. "Exactly, man, exactly. And you don't have to figure it all out tonight. You just have to take the first step." And Curry shakes his head, whispering with a trembling smile. "Then maybe this is it, Jimmy. Maybe this, right here. Admitting it out loud. Maybe this is step one." Fallon beams, gripping his shoulder. "It is, Steph. It is." And the audience claps again, a standing ovation this time, the sound echoing in waves across the studio. Curry presses his hand against his chest, overwhelmed, his eyes still wet but now shining with something new. You know what, Jimmy? For the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm carrying the weight alone. For the first time, I feel like maybe I don't have to be perfect to be loved. And Fallon's voice rises to match the moment. That's the truth, Steph. That's the truth you've been searching for. But just as the emotion reaches its peak, Curry takes another long, shaky breath, his lips trembling, and whispers, "But Jimmy, there's still one more thing I've never said out loud, and it might be the hardest part of all."
The silence is so thick, it feels like the studio itself is holding its breath. Fallon leans in, eyes fixed on Curry, waiting for the words that have been building up for years, and Curry's lips tremble as he finally exhales, his voice raw and unfiltered. "Jimmy, the hardest part, the truth I've never said out loud to anyone, is that sometimes I wonder if I'm enough, even for the people I love the most, even for my family, even for my kids, because I've built this image of being unshakable, unstoppable. And deep down, I'm terrified that if they see me broken, if they see me like this, maybe they won't look at me the same. Maybe they'll see less of a hero and more of a failure." And Fallon's eyes soften with both sorrow and understanding, his hand gripping Curry's tighter. "Steph, man, that right there, that fear, that's the thing we all carry in our own way. The fear that the people closest to us won't love us if we show them our real selves. But let me tell you this, Steph, your family, your kids, they don't need a superhero. They don't need the MVP. They don't need the legend of the game. They just need their dad, their husband, the man who loves them, and that's more than enough." And Curry breaks into sobs again, the kind of sobs that shake the body, uncontrollable, years of suppressed weight crashing down. He covers his face with both hands as the audience sits in reverent silence, some wiping tears. Fallon gently keeps speaking, his voice steady. "Steph, do you hear me? You are enough, man. You always have been, and nothing, no trophy, no title, no headline will ever matter more to the people who truly love you than the fact that you're you." Curry slowly lowers his hands, his eyes swollen and red but shining with something fragile yet powerful, his voice trembling as he whispers, "I want to believe that, Jimmy. I want to hold on to that, because I'm so tired of pretending. I'm so tired of hiding. I just want to live without the fear that the love will disappear when the game does." And Fallon nods, his own voice quivering with emotion. "Then let this be the moment, Steph. Let this be the night you stop pretending. The night you realize you don't have to carry the mask anymore. Because if there's one thing this moment proves, it's that people love you even more when you're real." And the audience bursts into applause again, but it isn't wild or chaotic, it's deep, it's steady. It's a rhythm of solidarity, almost like a heartbeat, as if the entire room is saying in unison, "We see you, we hear you, we love you." Curry takes a long breath, looking around, meeting the eyes of strangers who feel more like family in this moment, and for the first time all night, he lets out a laugh that isn't broken but free, his voice soft yet resonant. "Maybe you're right. Maybe this is the beginning of me finding myself beyond the game. Maybe this is the start of me being okay with being just Steph." Fallon beams through his own tears, his voice breaking into a smile. "That's it, man. That's it. You don't have to be anybody else. Not the legend, not the superhero, just Steph. And that's more than enough for this world." And Curry wipes his face, sitting up straighter, his body lighter, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for giving me the space to finally let this out, because I've been holding it for too long." Fallon shakes his head, his tone fierce yet tender. "Don't thank me, Steph. Thank yourself for the courage to say it, because tonight you reminded the world that greatness isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about heart, and you gave that to all of us." And the audience erupts one final time, a standing ovation so thunderous it feels like the walls are vibrating. Curry looks out over the crowd, his chest heaving, his eyes glistening but steady, and for the first time in what feels like forever, He doesn't feel the weight of expectations crushing him. He feels seen, he feels heard, he feels human. And in that humanity, he discovers a new kind of strength, one that has nothing to do with points or titles, but everything to do with truth. He places his hand over his heart, nodding slowly, and whispers into the microphone with a voice that trembles yet stands unbroken, "I'm enough." And the studio explodes into cheers. Fallon wraps his arm around him tightly, repeating softly into his ear, "Yes, you are. Yes, you are." And as the cameras keep rolling, as the applause grows louder, as tears and smiles blend together in the room, the image of Stephen Curry isn't just of a champion anymore. It's of a man who finally faced himself and chose to be real. And in that raw honesty, in that vulnerable surrender, he becomes something greater than the game could ever define. Not just a legend of basketball, but a symbol of courage, of authenticity, of what it truly means to rise. And with that, the show doesn't just end, it transforms into something unforgettable. A moment etched not in stats or history books, but in the hearts of everyone who witnessed it, leaving the world with the unshakable truth that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is cry, confess, and finally accept that you are enough.